Chapter 2: Temples, Mosques, Monasteries, and Churches. Our body is made from five visible elements, that is, earth, wind, fire, space or sky, and water. But we all have a soul representing our inner invisible divinity, and seeking that divinity is our spiritual goal. So, if an invisible inner God is already within us, then why do we need to build, maintain, and regularly visit these opulent and expensive places of worship like temples, mosques, monasteries, or churches? It has been implied that everything is within us. Then why is my answer a vehement yes? This seemingly simple answer requires many complicated explanations. Since ancient times, it was not easy to imagine divinity as invisible and formless. Humans were and are still conditioned to identify things with faces and forms. Hence, places of worship came into existence to personify and identify the divine's visible form. Humans voluntarily built places of worship because they needed physical idols or deities to worship and pray. This also paved a comfortable and practical approach for humans by giving them an option and choice of a physical or a spiritual divinity. As we all know, humans are not loners or hermits, but social animals and creatures of habit. So it became important for them to find a regular meeting place to discuss the events of the day and seek guidance regarding divine matters in secrecy and privacy. Temples, mosques, monasteries, or churches, TMCs hereafter, are located in the heart of cities or far away from them, depending on the areas and locations available at those times. TMCs provide many social services we discover as we keep on frequenting them. Serene ambience. Food, clothing, and shelter are the physical body's needs. However, spiritual hunger and peace of mind are also necessities. Today, there is practically no system that provides for this basic spiritual and mental needs. Worse, still our fast-paced lifestyle agitates our mind a lot, keeping serenity away. No wonder the World Health Organization, WHO, has declared that the current century's most significant medical challenge is a stress-free mental health. Deadly illness and viruses are on the rise as a result of climate change, creating high stress levels. Devotees are immediately experiencing a sense of calmness and inner peace just by physically entering the TMCs. We are surprised by how they have become such heavens of tranquility, despite being located amidst the city's hustle and bustle. Those houses of faith are often open 24/7, so many devotees come to worship. They seem to get mentally recharged and get divine strength to cope with the daily challenges of life. The usage of metals and construction patterns have proven to transmit positive divine energy. Most TMCs have opulent displays of architecture, art, engineering of that era. They are built using the most advanced scientific technologies. Here you see a harmonious blend of divinity and science. Hence, they are hubs of positive and divine energies amidst the centers of the city. This peace of mind is not a luxury, but a necessity. So, various TMCs have mushroomed to cater to this spiritual need. Spiritual schools. As we regularly visit the premises of our TMCs, the darkness of our ignorance is illuminated by divine knowledge. These places can also be called our spiritual schools, which offer spiritual education to humanity. As the adage goes, birds of the same feather flock together. So in these TMCs, human to meet and learn from masters and fellow believers. In the spiritual schools, we are mentally groomed as to how and why we do moral things. Here, we are taught spirituality. We mature in understanding ethical reasons as to why we do certain physical traditions and spiritual rituals. To randomly cite an example, medical college teaches students how to cure a patient, but they do not teach us why to heal him. Consequently, some doctors see their patients as ATMs and often subject them to unnecessary tests and long expensive treatments to earn more. The body usually cures itself by resting, but the doctors collect the cash and get the credit. Similarly, in every profession, when making money is the primary concern, professionals exploit their clients. Without spiritual education, most people will not stay fair and honest for a long time. Sooner or later, they will succumb to an immoral, corrupt, and exploitatory mentality. Like traffic laws, moral principles promote self-discipline and order. Great leaders and thinkers like Buddha, Aristotle, Plato, Emerson, Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela have taught why such materialist world's view lead to corruption and degradation of human values. Modern education is not a unifying force. In reality, it enhances selfish tendencies. That is why most graduates today try to use education by selling it to the highest bidder. They never think of helping the indigent with their knowledge. Real education should be focused on character building and not on selling their expertise to the highest bidder. They should imbibe a sense of serving the needy rather than hunting for high-paying jobs. There should be a synthesis of modern scientific knowledge with the ancient wisdom of the greatest thinkers of the past. Reverence and compassion with total humility should be the beacons to these new graduates. For without a spiritual education, life will have no meaning, no significance, and no value. This is vital for the citizens and nations, and especially for the leaders of the future generation. Another random example is when we read about students who succumb to unnecessary blind rage and decide to shoot co-students and teachers, including themselves, in many parts of the world. We get a scary feeling when specific individuals go on a killing spree, including women and innocent children. The answer lies in the lack of spiritual moral education. Major religions emphasize the virtue of nonviolence, love, compassion, empathy, and forgiveness. Such values are imparted to us through holy narrations and meaningful rituals. This ensures a complete guiding system or a GPS which is already set up in the TMCs. Visiting places of worship inspires us to be peaceful and non-violent and to serve human beings. This creates a higher degree of harmony and trust which encourages good moral behavior. When we experience this genuine spiritual education from the visit to the TMCs, it triggers our inborn value system. It reduces alienation, suspicion, and exploitations of others. These TMCs teach us to be free from selfish, lustful, greedy, and self-centered urges, which leads to unnecessary violence. Without spiritual education, people tend to use their education to abuse and exploit others. TMCs help remove the ignorance of our inborn divine nature and teach us the practical process of curbing our exploiting mentality. Everywhere there are the good, bad, and the ugly. A dedicated and conscientious devotee who has adopted humanism defends and protects the good, resists and transforms the bad, and penalizes the ugly. These are the radical, destructive-minded people who are prone to violence. TMC teaches humans to become more caring and sensitive to others' feelings and suffering as they learn to interact and socialize. As the fountain of compassion and kindness starts flowing from the hearts, human comes to realize or are enlightened as to what morally is right and what is wrong. These TMCs, therefore, are not only schools of offering moral and spiritual education, but also are responsible for molding the youth into becoming future, honest, and caring citizens of the world. Spiritual sobering. Since birth and even pre-birth, humans have been infected by dangerous habits that prove fatal in the long run. These carried over habits are anger, gluttony, lust, greed, envy, sloth, wrath, pride, which are reinforced by the possession of material things that drag human down to an animal level. A random example is when hippies in the 1960s were considered a dangerous fad of youngsters in the United States. Despite all its national resources, Uncle Sam could not tackle the hippie problem or bring any kind of discipline in them. However, a solitary, elderly Hindu preacher named Swami Prabhupada transferred those hippies by preaching love, spirituality, and compassion, which does not require any language. He was able to bring in a sobering effect and turn those hardened drug addict hippies into Krishna devotees and a service-oriented group. In 1966, with the help of those hippies, he built the first International Society for Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON temple in New York City, USA. He thus became the founder of the world-famous Hare Krishna movement. Since then, over 850 ISKCON temples have been built worldwide. Changing those hippies' habits was not an easy task, as old habits die hard. The hippies have been sporting long hairs, headbands, goggles, and tight-fitting clothes, and were compulsive meat eaters since birth. The hippies, for a fact, would have never wanted to adapt to this drastic change, nor were they ready to exchange their religion to any other faith. However, to be openly identified with the movement, first they were told to shave their heads, then they were told to wear a traditional loose saffron robe. They were even told that they had to become vegans. For sure, this was a big no-no among the hippies. But the rest, as they say, is Krishna history. We can find positive testimonies of hardened criminals and serial killers in every religion. After coming to the fold, they underwent a divine change. They simply stopped their barbaric way of life and made complete U-turns and became model citizens. These reformed citizens zealously devoted the rest of their lives to the divine, and quite a few became world famous and shining examples for their fellow believers. The TMCs have an ancient rule, and that is, if you spend some time in their premises regularly, you will surely come out with a positive attitude towards life. Spiritual education has proved to bring positive miracles and sobriety in the lives of human beings. Meditation centers. The highest form of meditation is group chanting, which is done regularly in our TMCs. Group chanting creates a public awareness which leads to teamwork and the serenity of mind. Chanting can be done in two forms, individual and/or in groups. Group meditation often leads to the soberness of our cluttered mind into a peaceful one. The purpose of meditation is to draw the mind inwards and away from the pressures of our daily stress. A serene mind focuses on a peaceful spiritual journey inward to seek and merge with the divine sixth element. We often comment on how relaxed we felt in today's group singing or religious discourses. TMCs provides a serene atmosphere for soberness of thoughts. Soberness of thoughts leads to purification of thoughts, which in turn leads to a healthful nature. After being oriented, personal meditation can also be done in a quiet place regularly in the privacy of our homes. It is part of our divine nature to serve the Lord and experience happiness. Regular visits to TMCs effectively restore our natural, peaceful, mental, spiritual, and healthy conditions. Traditional teachings of scriptures and sermons of our TMCs do bring spiritual knowledge. Thus, the regular visit to our local TMCs and spending time with preachers have guided many souls who have strayed off their religious paths. Such knowledge is meant for bad people to become good and for good people in becoming better until they become spiritually divine. God as a role model for leaders. Our TMCs have ancient, time-tested ways of imparting wisdom in their teachings. This is done by narration and rituals, which are morally beneficial for the leaders of society. Since childhood, these leaders have been listening to parables and practicing rituals with morals in the regular sermons. An age-old parable, which is often told in the TMCs to increase faith, is as follows. A religious preacher called on the whole village to seek divine intervention as there had been a long drought due to no rain for a long time. But as everyone started to pray, the preacher saw that only a young child had brought an umbrella. The crowd too noticed it and teased the child for carrying an umbrella in a drought-stricken place. The child replied that as they had all gathered to pray for rain, he had brought along an umbrella as a token of belief. Now it was the crowd's turn to be silent and to give a sheepish grin to each other. The preacher said that only this boy had shown real faith. These morals and wisdoms in the faith are imbibed in the youth. Naturally, as they grow up, these future leaders will impose a stricter code of conduct in their private lives. This code of conduct brings discipline, morality, honesty, and compassion, which they would need while making significant decisions that affect the whole nation. When we are joyful, as we interact with each other, the feeling of joy comes out and creates a comfortable ambience of positive energy. But when we are sad or empty within, we will be forced to manipulate and exploit others as we interact with others consciously or unconsciously. Our minds will automatically weave a web of negative energy. Generally, we think, how can I take advantage and profit from others? After being enlightened with a spiritual knowledge from the TMCs, our attitude may change when we interact with each other, and our thoughts would be, why should I take advantage of these people? And how can I help them out of their troubles? Moreover, TMCs help us mold our character and integrity. In modern society, some misguided people become corrupted after gaining political power and seats of influence. If the wealthy and the influential people worldwide become pure-hearted, they would be motivated to do the greater good rather than follow their greed. They would use the resources that God or nature has given them to share their blessing with the world. A clear imbalance is created when 15% of the people have 85% of the world's wealth. Leaders should visit and learn from places of worship. They should hear spiritual wisdom from learned and experienced preachers. They should find time from their busy daily schedule for prayers and meditation. By praying often, they will experience the thankfulness theory, as every day given to him, by him to us, is a gift of time to do something good. That is why today is always referred to as present tense. TMCs are the places where our modern leaders and our next generations can learn and experience wisdom, love, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness. With this inspiration from God, they can become visionaries and compassionate leaders. The leaders will then guide the country to invest our time in the divine service and experience inner bliss. The leaders will then, in general, learn to promote peace among religions and nations, use their authority for a moral education expansion. No holy cows or VIP treatment among people. Enact law for the greater good than for selfish reason. Nature, a place where we can feel God. God does have a benevolent plan for every one of us, along with the whole world. However, evil things will still and do happen despite the divine goodness in all of us. Humans have forgotten God's plan and instead are attempting to impose their own selfish agendas fueled by greed. For example, God had planned for us humans to live in harmony with nature by simply living and fulfilling our needs. Instead, we have imposed our selfish plans of industrialization and urbanization globally. God has endowed humans with free will, yet are still trapped in a never-ending materialistic amassment that lasts beyond generations. Thus, when humans upset the delicate atmospheric balance, we experience disasters like tsunamis, earthquakes, heat waves, forest fire, result of climate change. We have to learn from TMCs that we should learn to abide by the divine guidelines, which we call acts of God. Nature also teaches us serenity, spirituality, sobriety, patience, and other divine qualities. Often, we just sit and just keep on gazing, admiring the wonders of nature's beauty, and fall in love with the creation of the divine. The nocturnal bright starry-filled sky, the artistic sunrise and sunset, many mysteriously divine and spectacular phenomena, panoramic view seen from tall mountains, peaks, cascading waterfalls and gushing streams, roaring rivers, immense blue oceans, and shining glaciers. Seeing them, we echo, God, did you create these beautiful things for us? This is when we should realize that God is not some person or power far away in the sky above, but many a time exists right down here on earth in these wonders of nature. He resides in various places of worship that human being had built for him. He is known to reside in the wonders of the nature. Many religions echo, and most of us can feel that the human body is the actual shrine of the almighty spiritual divinity. The Creator lives within His creation. Maybe we can understand that the divinity sitting inside us is also the same divinity sitting inside everyone's living creator. If we were to believe this simple, pure, divine truth, would we not look at each other as fellow brethren and not as mortal enemies? Would that not teach us to be more tolerant of every religion and country? Would that not reduce the wars and terrorism which are carried out in the name of religion? Imagine a terror-free planet Earth. Namaste. Since ancient times, Hinduism has supported the human body as the shrine theory of a spiritual divine God. sitting within us. Hindus have been taught to greet each other by saying Namaste with folded hands instead of shaking hands. Namaste is a combination of two root Sanskrit words, Namo and Isthite, which roughly translated means that the common divine sixth element located inside me salutes and bows down to the common divine sixth element located inside you. The person facing you also responds and says Namaste, concurring the same feeling or belief that the universal omnipresent divine sixth element resides in each one of us. Many Asian countries have similar tradition of folding hands and bowing to show respectful greetings and gratitude to each other. What a hygienic and spiritual way to greet and thank each other in these pandemic times. Serving fellow brethren in need. Modern school define progress as making better changes, but spiritual leaders define progress as changing people for the betterment. Current leaders emphasize technological development for a better civilization. However, even though we have better technology today, we also have a highly enhanced, stressful atmosphere of fear, loneliness, depression, divorce, drug addiction, violent teenage crimes, and suicides. People usually argue that there is no need to go to the TMCs because God is present everywhere. A possible answer to this is water is also present in many forms, but we need to go to the oasis while drinking water is available whenever we feel thirsty in a desert. Similarly, if we want to feel divinity, we need to go to these time-tested TMCs. It is only when we regularly visit our TMCs that we get the chance to recharge spiritually. Socializing with our fellow believers goes a long way to end loneliness and encourage charity. Charity has proven to be the noblest aspiration of humans. Every place of worship has regular charities of food, clothing, and shelter. The grateful smile on those indigents' grim faces is worth all the efforts and donation in these charitable events. TMCs regularly preaches that serving the needy is a practical way to serve the Lord. Many people do spend huge amounts in charities where they know they will secure name and fame. But when there are no media to record their charity, if they see an elderly, sick, handicapped beggar on the street, they seldom offer help. People usually ask, what is the highest form of charity? Well, sages have answered that. The highest form of charity is the one that is done without any expectation or reciprocation or for name and fame. Mother Nature, our warehouse. As is observed, pregnant mothers receive the milk much before the baby arrives. It means that the divine arranges the food much before the physical birth of the baby. In the same way, nature was first created, then inhabited, up with plants, mountains, and water bodies. Plants were necessary as they will provide oxygen for humans. It is estimated that oxygen from 15 trees is required for every human during his stay on earth. They should plant at least 20 plants before they die to maintain the vital balance of nature. That is how Mother Nature has always been exploited and the supply and demand become imbalanced. Then they are filled with veggies and fruits, minerals and aquatic life, respectively, followed by creation of animals and mammals of all kinds. Finally, humans were created in the image of the divine to dominate planet Earth. This does not mean that humans physically have the same appearance as God. It is believed that the stories are mere metaphors or symbolic description. It may mean that the humans have been handed down specific characteristics which they share with God, like loving, forgiving, and being compassionate. These qualities are not present in other jungle creatures. As civilization spread, humans have replaced the lush forest and urbanized planet Earth with their own cemented jungles. Humans have succeeded in taming the animals and using them for domestic and commercial use. They have even to some extent controlled the elements of nature. Humans, however, should not abuse nature and take it as per their needs and not as per their greeds. Joke time! The preacher and the driver. A preacher and a reckless bus driver from the same town died and arrived at the heavenly gate. They met an angel there and awaited for their judgment. The angel asked, "Who are you?" The bus driver, "I am just a drunk, reckless bus driver." The angel, "Please go straight to in heaven." The angel asked, "Who are you?" The preacher, "Well, I am a devoted preacher of faith for many years." The angel, "You will have to wait for 2 years before you proceed to heaven." Preacher, in a protesting voice, "Why do I have to wait? I have religiously preached the name of the divine for many years, and he is just a reckless bus driver." Angel, "I agree with your sentiments, but when you preached, most of your listeners slept and never once remembered God. But when this drunken, reckless driver drove, all his passengers desperately prayed to God for their safety, so they remembered God with all earnestness. So he was able to spread the name of God much more than you.